Welcome to the Eurostep Brit podcast.
Under 10 seconds. Game's going to be decided here. Harrell spots up. Doesn't go. Put back is good! Roberto Gallina with a second chance opportunity. Aris Lee. Per Gunther for three. Got it. Per Gunther, 3 punkter. Holland. Pull up three, no good. Orcus, the offensive board. He turns around and shoots. Got it at the buzzer!
Hello and welcome to episode 32 of the Eurostep Brit podcast. We'll call this one At Home in Steel City. This week's guest is Todd Cauthorn, who spent time in both Austria and Belgium, but to most fans will be known for his multiple spells with the Sheffield Sharks. In this episode, we'll look back on Todd's basketball journey, the highs and the lows, and how they shaped his career. And we'll also dive into life after his playing days came to an end. So, without any further ado, let's get to it. Todd, welcome to the podcast. It's absolutely fantastic to get you on to look back over what was a pretty stellar career. I just want to take you back, like I do with most guests, to the beginning. You come from Virginia, is that right? In the States?
That's correct.
What was your first introduction to basketball?
Well, that's a really good question. It's so long ago now. I might struggle to remember. I remember playing organized basketball for the first time when I was around 9 or 10. And in Virginia, where I was growing up, they had leagues that were organized by the local recreation. The council effectively would organize the leagues and would play. You played a lot of the same teams over and over again. It wasn't they weren't large places that I grew up, very small towns. And then when I was in effectively, I suppose, year 6 or 7, that would have been year 5 or 6 actually. We played for our primary school, elementary school it was called. And we played against the other elementary schools. So you got to see the players that you would eventually all come into one team when you went up to middle school, which was really interesting because then every single player from all of those teams went for tryouts at middle school. So that all of a sudden there's like 70 kids trying for 12 spots. And that was quite interesting. And I made the team, and I wasn't very good at that time in my life. I love the game. I played it all the time, but I wasn't very good. I didn't play a whole lot. I didn't start on my middle school team. And when I was 14, I grew from probably just under 6 feet tall to 6'5", 6 feet 5 inches, and that was over the course of about 4 or 5 months over the summer mostly. So it was kind of weird when everybody saw me leave for the summer break, which in America is about 3 months long, and then I came back and I was 6'5", and nobody knew what happened. Everybody thought it was weird. I was a different person, and that summer I had also gone to 4 different basketball camps in and around where I lived. And so as I was growing, I was also playing constantly that summer, all day, every day. And fortunately for me, I was then able to make my high school varsity team as a sophomore. So I was effectively, I guess that would be year 11 here. So 11, 12, and 13 were effectively my last 3 years at high school, and I played on the varsity team every year on those years and started all of those games as well. So I received more and more attention. I got listed on some recruiting lists, top sort of 100 players in the country, McDonald's honorable mention, All-America. I was second team for All State, played in the Virginia High School All-Star game, and got offered a scholarship to go to. Well, I had quite a few offers, but the school that I chose was a good academic school, which I wouldn't have gotten into without basketball for sure. And that was the College of William and Mary in Virginia. And yeah, I showed up there. I was not ready to go to college, I think at that point. Looking back now and seeing the journey that players take nowadays, taking their time to get to college, going to prep schools, taking that extra year, I think I probably would have really benefited from that. But but yeah, I showed up there, and that was a whole nother interesting story. College basketball for me was really bizarre time.
Obviously, Virginia's quite a big state, but how far away? Because it's Williamsburg, wasn't it? William and Mary, is that right?
That's right.
How
Yeah.
far was that away from home? Was
So
it
that was
close?
only about 3.5 hours drive. I say only, to a lot of people in this country, that's a pretty big drive, but that was nothing.
Yeah.
It's all interstate open road. It's 3.5 hours is how long it takes, no matter what. And so, my parents and my relatives got to see me play quite a lot. We played, there were actually universities that were closer to where I grew up. Virginia Military Institute, James Madison University was closer. There was a lot of D3 schools near where I grew up. Washington, D.C. wasn't that far away. We played George Mason, Virginia Commonwealth, and Old Dominion. So, these schools were good basketball schools. They were all in Virginia or Washington, D.C. So I really had a lot of schools to choose from. And that doesn't even go into North Carolina. That was also only about 3 or 4 hours away. So you had a lot of schools there: Davidson, High Point, Campbell, UNC Wilmington. I was never recruited by any top ACC schools like North Carolina or Virginia or Maryland or these types of schools, but I had a lot of mid to low Division I schools who were interested in me.
Around that time you went to William and Mary, what's the mindset? Are you thinking, I want to try and have a professional career, or you're more thinking, this is a good chance to get a degree, set up my next stage of life?
I didn't even know you could play professional basketball in Europe when I first went to William Mary. It wasn't even on my radar,
Huh?
but I'll save that story of how I found out. Um, but it's difficult to talk about William and Mary because so much of my experience at William and Mary was fantastic. The campus was amazing. Williamsburg is an amazing place. The friendships that I have to this day are also incredible. Meeting one of my friends from there over in Spain in May, I go and see a lot of my friends from there every time I go back and visit America. But the basketball side of going to William Mary was not a great experience. It was it was kind of like England in some ways. It was a bit of an afterthought,
Right.
basketball. At that school, the American football team, was popular. It got a lot of attention. We didn't get a lot of fans at our games. Our coach was not good, and I didn't know this because I'd been recruited by one of the assistant coaches who I got on with really, really well. And unfortunately, the summer before I arrived, he left and went to another school, as coaches are prone to do
Hmm.
in college basketball, university basketball in America. And he was a big supporter of mine, and I lost my supporter. So the head coach did not have a very good view of me. And again, back in those days, there was no portal you could go in. You didn't transfer around and go to different schools every year like kids do now. You sort of just your mindset was that you just had to make the best of the situation. And like I said, everything about the school was great, except for the basketball, which we did not win many games at all. I think we won 5 games my first year. I think we won 6 games my second year. It was brutal.
You were saying about not many fans. Isn't that quite a big arena though that you played in? Like over
Yeah,
10, 11,000 or something?
which makes it even worse when nobody's there.
So it's never
Um,
full?
well, so
Not even like Seniors Day or
things,
something,
things,
or no?
yeah, things got progressively better. We got better as a team throughout my 4 years there, and my senior year, we had good players, and we managed to have the first winning season, I think, in something like, I don't know, 14 years that year. It had been a long time. And we played the University of Virginia, which was an AACC school, and we packed out our place for that, and we went to overtime and lost. Um, but weirdly enough, that was one of the games that Coach Jim Brandon saw a tape of when he made me my offer to come to Sheffield. But that was back when you had to post out videotapes, right? So VHS tapes with your games on them. So I had two games on that tape. That was one game where I played really well. I think I had 24 points, 15 rebounds, something like that. And then I had another game that he saw where I broke the record for rebounds in a game, which was 24 rebounds.
Talking about obviously the college, what was it like, the experience? Obviously, because you're there as an athlete, but you're also studying as well. What was that like for you? The mix?
Horrific, because referred to my earlier comment that I wouldn't have gotten into the school if it wasn't for being offered a scholarship, because academically it was really, really tough. So I struggled. We got support, which was great, and I had some tutors, and um, I had to be clever about how I took my classes, and I ended up majoring in economics, which was still tough, and I scraped through. And when I say I scraped through, I scraped through. It was really tough.
Is it one of those situations where you had to sort of maintain a certain average in order to be able to play on the team?
That's correct. Yeah, you had to maintain a certain grade point average, and I mean we recruited, smart players who were smart academically. So we never really had. I think I remember maybe one person in my 4 years who became academically ineligible while I was there, and he ended up leaving the school. But but yeah, it was really tough. And we didn't get any help from like I said, basketball was a bit of an afterthought there. We didn't get any help from any professors. Not like the movies, where the basketball players would turn in a paper and you'd come back and get, a few comments on it and get a good grade. It was they would just as much want to give you a terrible grade as they did a good one. But yeah, it was really tough.
So let's bring you forward then to the end of your time there. What were you thinking in that senior year when you were finishing up? What was going to come next?
Yeah, there was another guy on my team who I'd been there all 4 years with, and he had quite a few friends. He was from North Carolina, Greensboro, and he had some friends who'd gone to Europe to play. So that was how I found out that that was a thing. Like you could do that. Fantastic. So he and I started really communicating about that. He was something that he wanted to do. It was something that I wanted to do. So after our senior season, we both met with quite a few different agents who wanted to represent. These are not like high level agents, but agents that could get us jobs in Europe. And we both signed with an agent. He was a guy who had previously gone to the University of Virginia, so he had close links in the area. And then I stayed in Williamsburg, and I played in the Norfolk Pro Am League, which had a bunch of NBA players in it. J.R. Reed, Alonzo Mourning, quite a few guys from around that area played in that league. And I used to drive down to Norfolk and play in that league, and that was a tough, really tough league. Really, that is like the movies, like a really rough environment. Gyms packed out, people going crazy,
No, no
people
whistles.
dunking. Pardon?
No whistles.
No, no whistles. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was there were referees, but it
Yeah.
was good, and I held my own in that, and I was working out still, and just waiting for a call really, and I waited and waited and waited for a long time, and university kind of school started up again, so I had to leave and go back. And the first weekend that I was back at home, I got a call to go to Austria just out of the blue, and got the call on Friday night, and I was leaving Sunday morning.
Did you know anything about Austria or the team or even the quality of the league, anything like that before you left?
No, this is the days where, there's no internet and stuff like that, so you couldn't do any research really. So it was, and I'll be honest with you, no, I didn't care. I wouldn't have cared. They could have said Siberia. They could have said, anywhere really, anywhere in Europe, Middle East. They could have said Australia. They could have said Far East. I didn't really care. Caribbean, Dominican Republic. It didn't matter to me. I just wanted to go and play.
Mm.
So Austria sounded fantastic to me, and I grabbed my little German English dictionary and packed up a bag and got on a Lufthansa flight. Sat right on the front row in front of the smoking section. I'll never forget that. So I had a nice full, smoke-filled lungs when I showed up.
You're aging
Uh,
yourself for that comment, you know that.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, and showed up there, and everyone was really welcoming. There was another American on the team. He was significantly older than me. I think I was 22 at the time. He was 34. He'd played there the previous season, so he knew the lay of the land. Um, and we weren't bosom buddies, we weren't best friends, but he was a good guy and a really good player. So we played well together. And he was more like he was like a 2-3
Yeah.
type player, but he was from coastal Carolina, North Carolina, so we weren't that far from each other. And yeah, the guys, the Austrian guys on the team were really nice. Um, and I had a good experience there. It was we were in the second division basically. Um, I met a lot of other Americans playing on other teams, and we would get together and hang out. It was a very close-knit community.
Was it the only team because it's Graz you played in, was that the only team there or was there any other teams in the city?
Yeah, there were two teams in the city. Yeah, we were Abate Say, and there was Ubayet Say, and we played each other twice a year, and we got an extra little bonus if we beat that team
So,
because
so
it
what was
gave
it
us
like
bragging rights.
before you obviously left for Austria? Had you ever traveled much, or was this the first real experience for you?
No, I mean, I traveled in college with our team, so we'd played tournaments in Tennessee. We played at Vanderbilt. That was amazing. We played a tournament in New Mexico, so we played at the Pit in New Mexico, very famous venue where North Carolina State won the last second shot, 1983. And then we also played in the Chaminade Christmas tournament in Hawaii. So those are the places that I'd traveled to. Texas to play SMU, um, played in Hartford, played against Rhode Island, um, and so I traveled with basketball, but not particularly with my family. We never traveled anywhere really.
Just going back, that 83 game you mentioned, was that the Jordan one?
No, that was
No, that was 82. That was 82, wasn't it?
yeah, that was 82.
Yeah.
83 was a Wolfpack, NC State.
Right. Right.
Yeah. But
Um,
that was 17,000 seat arena, and they all hated me, as I'm sure a lot of your fans that listen to your podcast will appreciate, because I was rough and I was tough and
yeah.
I was fouling and I was being physical. And every time I caught the ball, 17,000 people would scream, and then when I passed it, they'd stop, and that was pretty funny.
You'd have to stop watching those Bill Lambier game tapes. That's what I say.
How I used to watch those all the time. I got a great picture of me and Bill Lambier at one of the O2 games, actually.
Yeah, yeah, I met him as well at one of them. So obviously you get to travel around the States, but
Mm.
this was your first international experience. So what is it like for you? Was it like a nervy time, or you just like soaking everything in because it's all new and different?
That's a good question. I think there's probably a mix of emotions there. You're nervous. You want to prove yourself. You're showing up, and as the majority of American players who come and talk to you would say, your first couple of weeks there will make or break whether you stay or not. In your contract, it says it's not a guaranteed year contract. You're showing up and you have to show that you're the player they think that you are. And so you get off the plane and you have to be ready, and you want to make sure that you play well, you play hard. Americans in that league, we had to score. If you didn't score, if you had a game where you had 8 or 10 or 12 points, you did not do your job. The other guy's job was to get myself and the other American the ball in positions where we could shoot and score, and the majority of our points would come from the two of us. But I think I soaked it all in. I wanted that experience. I wanted to go and see things. I wanted to be somewhere where I could visit other places and see the world. And I think being in America, you can get lulled into a sense of that America is amazing. There's a lot of places you could go, and you could never have the same holiday twice. But I definitely wanted to see the world, and this was the way that I was going to do it.
I haven't really got any information on that season in Austria, but do you remember how the team finished that year?
We did not finish well. We had to go. So it's an interesting. It's kind of like a promotion demotion scenario, and you end up getting, if you're in the bottom of the league, you end up putting in almost like a playoff format, round robin format with the teams that are trying to come up, and then they don't just automatically go down. You then play those teams in almost like a little mini tournament over a series of weeks to see who stays up and who stays down. It's interesting, actually, because I didn't really understand it. I didn't really care. I was just making sure that we won those games. But thinking back, it at least gives the potentially demoted teams a chance to show, hey, we're still better than what than these other teams that could come up. But we ended up staying up that season. But I think I went home in early April, and yeah, I had some great experiences, made some good friends, and then went back in the summer, and that was 1994. So that was a World Cup in America. I watched every game. I lived in Georgia with some friends of mine. We had a fantastic time. And again, I was just working out, speaking to my agent. And so after a while, that agent, he couldn't get me anything. So I basically wrote him a letter and said, I'm releasing you, or I'm releasing myself from my contract. And I'd met another guy named Bob Stanley at a Pro-Am tournament in Virginia, and he lived in Brussels. And so I called him up, and he said that he would look for something for me. And he was the one who was contacted by Jim Brandon and the Sharks that summer. And so that's how I got that gig. He called me up and he said, there's a new team in Sheffield in England. It's the first season in the league. They're interested in you. And I was like, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Language pretty much the same. So
yes,
that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, okay, you get on the plane, you come to Sheffield. What's your first experience like?
Well, I'll never forget. I was going through immigration, and the girl took my passport, and it had my stamp and everything in it that I'd gotten, my visa or whatever. And she said, "Where are you going? And where are you going to work?" And I said, "Sheffield." And she was like, "Have you ever been to Sheffield?" And I said, "No." And she was like, "Oh, no, get ready." Some British sarcasm right out the gate. And I got picked up by Betty Cadona and her husband, legendary coach of the Hatters. They picked me up, and we talked all the way up about basketball this and basketball that. And she had a lot of experiences in America. And they brought me up to Sheffield, and I came in. The team was already practicing. So I was, I think I got there in like late August. And the day I arrived, they had a friendly against Coventry, which I refused to play in. And I stand by that decision because I was exhausted. And so yeah, we started practicing the next day, and you know I heard you talking to Jason about that season, and you know it was you think back now, and it's just a bunch of misfits just thrown together in a cauldron, and we just all got on really well right from the start.
You say misfits, but you guys, you just gelled so well.
Yeah.
You know, you're such a competitive team. I mean, I'm just looking back at the roster from that
Mm,
first season and just the guys you're playing with. So what was it like? You know, so you got Chris Finch as a teammate, Roger
hmm.
Huggins, you know, there's Windu on there, young Jason, of course, who was on previous episode.
That's
What was
right.
it like playing with these guys?
Well, it was interesting because I mean, coming in straight away, Chris had been there the year before.
Hmm.
He'd played for the Forgers in the lower division, so he had a good awareness of the standard. He'd been in Sheffield, so he was really a good person to know straight away. I mean, I walked in. I'd put on a bit of weight over that summer. I hadn't had my hair cut in a long time. I think I remember him saying when I walked in, they're like, who the hell is this guy?" But I went for I went for a number one and took care of that hair. Got rid of that. Lost considerable amount of weight over the next couple of weeks, and got fighting fit. So. Garnett, you know, Gale was another guy that we had there. He played with Chris, so I think they had some chemistry, you know, because the Forgers played really well the year before, and
Hmm.
Garnett was a little bit older. I think he was 29 or 30, and you know he was a very strong player, very vocal. You know he will hold everyone to account. That was really good. Um, he was, you know, he was always a big smile on his face. You know, he'd come to practice, and yeah, he was glad to be there. The reason why I say misfits is because some of the other players that we had were players who had been on teams that had effectively almost been sort of released to the Sharks as an expansion team. You know, guys like Sean Mackay, Adrian Anderson, Chicken, Gary Smith. You know, these guys had been on other teams, and then Richard was a local guy. He'd been on the Forgers as well. So it was wild. And Pluto, you know, Pluto was my roommate. What an amazingly nice guy Pluto is. You know, he totally looked after me. He welcomed me. You know, he drove me around. We roomed together in a house of one of the sponsors, Andy Evans and Anna Evans and their family with their four kids. That was funny. Um, so very different than the year before, but almost a real sort of family atmosphere. You know, as soon as I arrived, which was really good, and we started winning straight away. Um, we won our first couple of games, and then we lost to Doncaster, and I thought, you know, I thought everyone acted like the world was going to end because I didn't understand, you know, how big of a game that was. And we lost to them, and I think everybody just basically thought that was it. The season was over because we lost to Doncaster.
Was that because of
But you know,
Yorkshire thing?
yeah,
Was
it's
that?
a local
Yeah.
rival. I think, you know, Jason had played there. We had some other crossovers with various people. Um, but, you know, I think after that, I think we won 23 games in a row, if I'm not
Mm.
mistaken, or 24. So, yeah, that was incredible. And what a run that was. I don't know if anybody else has won 24 games in a row, but I'm almost positive we won that many. Off the top of my head. I'm sure Daniel Routledge would be able to bring out some stats, but
Oh, he will
it
do.
it was an awesome run that we went on that season.
Um, I just look at the stats. I mean, you had a really good season. The only person that beat you in both rebounding and scoring was Roger Huggins. You finished second. So your first
Mm.
season in Sheffield, you're contributing right off the bat.
Roger was an incredible player. Um, I think that caused teams a lot of problems because we ran an offense, a traditional offense where a lot of 1-4 sets, either 1-4 high or 1-4 low sets. We set a lot of back screens for Chris and for Garnett, and we got Roger the ball in the post, and he attracted an incredible amount of attention. So he would dump it down to me for a dunk. He would kick it, reverse the ball for over the top pass to Chris or to Garnett. Garnett would drive to the basket, and he was always under control. He would get the ball to the right people. And Sean started to shoot the ball well. And then we'd bring Ian and Jason off the bench. They would just knock down threes. Pluto would come in. Pluto loved the 3-pointer, but he could also mix it up a little bit inside. And then Richard used to come in and just, really just be physical with people. Richard had really good footwork. He was only young then. I think he was 18 or 19. But yeah, we had great, and our practices were so tough. Jim Brandon, man, what a tough coach he was. He was really tough on us.
If we just go back then quickly, when Jimmy brought you in, what did he say to you your role would be on this team?
Yeah, I think, Chris and I were very much team players. I think that we didn't really envision ourselves as people who had to score, as Americans, we had to score 25 points a game. It wasn't like it was in certainly for me in the year before. We got the sense that we had enough talent and enough scoring that we could, we didn't need to do that. I think anytime Chris had, so between 15 and 20, or I had between 15 and 20, we were, I don't know, you've got the stats in front of you, but I'm pretty sure we had 5 players who averaged double figures thereabouts in that season. So if one of us wasn't hurting you on any given night, then somebody else is going to do it. And Roger was our main offensive focus. There's no doubt about that. But I think that, Sean could have 15. Garnett could definitely have 15 or 20. Garnett was always guarding the opposing team's best player. Chris was a good defender. And like I said, and then we had just guys coming off the bench just raining threes. Ian, Jason. Chicken was injured a lot. Adrian would come in and bring some athleticism. He would come in and shut guys down. We'd put him, if somebody was getting going on the other team, we'd bring in Adrian in and say basically like a dog out of the pound, just say sick him. He would just go after whoever it was and just make their life miserable. So yeah, it was good. It was good, and we played really well. It was fun.
Yeah, I looked it up. You had 4 players in double digits that first.
Yeah.
I had to look it up because one thing I remember about that first season was I was a Tigers fan and they finished 1 game behind. But I remember there was another team in that title race as well. And I had to look it up so I could remember. It was the London Towers. So both the Towers and the Tigers finished 1 game behind the Sharks. So it was a pretty good title race.
Yeah, it was. And actually, looking back, we won all those games in a row. It was a good thing that we did because we lost to Thames Valley twice. So if we would have lost, we had to win the last game of the season at Doncaster. If we would have been tied, if we would have lost and been tied with Thames Valley, they had the tiebreaker. So it was really important that we went on that run in the middle of the season and beat all the teams that we were quote unquote, supposed to beat. But yeah, we had, and there was a couple of games toward the end of the season that were on TV as well, and that was just right before everything started to happen with Sky, and so we had a couple of games. One of them against Thames Valley at home, and yeah, that was. But Doncaster winning the league at Doncaster and playing that game, that was incredible. That was a great day.
And was that good because you'd lost to them early in the season?
Oh, for several reasons. We'd lost to them. They were our rivals. you used to drive into up towards their venue, the Dome, and it said Yorkshire's #1 professional basketball team. It was a big sign, that they did on this. I was like, okay.
Surprised you didn't tear it down afterwards.
No, we're not like that. We're not like it. We do our talking on the floor.
Coming from the States, obviously you won the championship that year, but of course coming from the States, that would just be a regular season. So was it weird getting used to the fact that, oh, this is a title? We can, finishing top of the regular season, we win a title. Was that weird for you at the time?
Definitely. And I also think it's weird that there were other trophies that you could win, right? So there's 4 trophies that you could win in one season. That was really weird to me because I was like, well, you know, in the States, the team that wins the playoff is the team that, the regular season doesn't really mean anything. That's where you're jockeying for position. You want to finish first because that means you play the lower seeded teams in the tournament. But winning the tournament was all, and so I think that was part of the thing that I didn't understand, and I think that takes some getting used to for American players. Of course, we lost the trophy final to Thames Valley that year, and then we played them again, and beat them for the cup final. So we won that cup, and that was a huge thing for us because I think it gave us the confidence against them because we hadn't done a very good job playing against them. They were really strong team that season. And I think Tony Hawley, Neville Austin, Steve Bucknell, off the top of my head. But yeah, that was the cup, and then winning a championship, and then the playoffs. That was something weird to get used to.
But you never turned down the silverware.
Definitely not.
So, Todd, I want to take you on from that great first season to the following
Do we
year.
have to?
Well, if you want to, if it's something else you want to say about it, go for it.
Oh no, it was great. I love talking about it, but yeah, we can move on. The second year had its challenges.
Yeah, you also had the chance to play against some pretty good teams that I've discussed with Jason in his podcast, but there was the McDonald's Open and then also playing Real Madrid in European competition as well. That was some big challenges for the Sharks.
Yeah, we got back on July 15th, and so we had a very short break after everything was over, comparatively speaking, and we started training. Jason talked about some of the preseason tournaments that we went to. We went to Belgrade. That was interesting. He didn't go too much detail about that, but that was an interesting experience, and that was a game where we had a big brawl actually against the other team,
Well, we're
and the
here for the
game was
detail.
abandoned. And the game was abandoned, so that was interesting. And then we were supposed to play another game after that. Well, the whole trip was bizarre because there was all sorts of stuff going on with them politically, and war and everything else, and then they made Chris and me out to be like public enemy #1 because we were Americans, and so that was all weird. But we went to play a team. I think it was in Novi Sad first, and the baskets kept breaking. I think Adrian went up and dunked and shattered a backboard. This was in warm-ups. Then they brought in another basket to replace it, and then Jason Krupp broke that one. So we went through 2 baskets in about 5 minutes, and that was the first game. So that was weird. And then we went to play a team in Železnik, just outside of Belgrade, and had a bench clearing brawl with them. That game was abandoned. So it didn't go. It wasn't going so well. So I think, for lots of reasons, we decided to come back, and then we went to Hungary and played in a tournament in Hungary. that was really good tournament. But all in all, we were trying to get ready for European competition, right? And it was
Mm.
really great of the management and the owner to put us on those trips, and I think it really helped us. And so we played a team from Luxembourg in the first round, and we beat them. And then, of course, came up against Real Madrid, which I know you talked about with Jason, and I think we won. Did we lose by 10 at home, something like that? Ponce Forge, I think it was. And then we were winning that game, and we should have won that game. And I swear the refs did not. I mean, they got Roger in foul trouble in the second half. They blew two fouls on him straight away because he was killing him. Roger was giving them the business. He looked like he should have been on their team and not on our team. He was outstanding. So yeah, it was a bit disappointing. And then we went to Ostend, and they were a really tough team. Ostend was really tough. And we never really had a chance. I think also, we'd done a lot of traveling. We'd had a long preseason. We played in the McDonald's tournament down in London. That was fun, but that was a big shindig. It was a big to do. There was a lot of pomp and circumstance with that.
Mm.
We played Maccabi Tel Aviv. Tom Chambers was on that team, which was amazing to play against him. We played against Real Madrid again, and they just caned us. It was not even close. So I think by the time we played Ostend, we were probably, domestic season was full on, and we were just probably a bit tired. Chris had been ill quite a lot of that preseason and through a lot of that time, so we were playing a lot of games without him, and that was tough. But it gave others an opportunity, as Jason said, to play more and to prove themselves. And we actually, that second season, we had a better record than the previous year overall. I think we were 30-6, but the Towers were strong. They brought in Bucknell and Austin from Thames Valley. They got Andy Harp, the guy from Derby. Forgot his name. They brought him in. He was really good. So yeah, they had a good team, and we just couldn't beat them that year.
So that is an unusual thing, the fact you improved your record
Mhm.
and the Towers still finished above you.
Yeah, I think they were 32-4 from memory.
Like I said, that is an unusual thing because the Towers had finished just one game behind you the previous year, and obviously they're like, we've got to do something about this.
Mm.
So the Towers got better and the Tigers slightly declined, let's just say. And I'll leave it there.
Yeah.
But
Well, I mean, Tigers lost two of their best players to Towers. I mean, that's tough to recover from. And then there was a lot of, I guess it was a lot of talk going on as well about the Bosman ruling that year, right? So that was the last season before things, quote unquote, opened up and people could move freely. So there was some politics going on with that too, because I think some of the English players were boycotting the All-Star game in Leicester, and Roger didn't do it. He didn't boycott it. So I think there was a little bit of bad feeling going around about that. But Roger wasn't that sort of person. He just wanted to play. He just he had a great attitude. But yeah, and the England team, there was an England program at that time, and so those guys are really tight. Roger, Neville, Carl Brown, Steve Bucknell. There was a lot of good English players, and they were all really tight with each other, knew each other really well. We had those international breaks in like November, which was fortunate for us Americans. It was right about Thanksgiving, so we used to get to go home for Thanksgiving sometimes, and that was pretty cool. but yeah, and then the following season things opened up. We had more Americans. I think we had you're allowed Americans with passports, European passports.
Yeah.
So the following season was very different than the previous two um, for us, and that was the year the Leopards really strengthened their squad, from memory. So we were, it was us, Leopards, and Towers really, who were all playing against each other.
If you take you forward a bit, you've talked obviously a lot about Roger Huggins, and he left round 97, I think. I haven't got my notes in front of me. What was it like after Roger left? Because like I said, he was quite a big focal point of that early Sharks teams.
Yeah, it was tough to lose a player of Roger's ability and his stature and his personality. We we had really good personalities on our team, and the reason why we were successful over those first 2 or 3 years was because we didn't take each other too seriously. Everyone got on, everyone liked each other. Nobody really held anything. If somebody was mad at somebody else, we'd get it out in the open and talk about it. Um, but I think Roger was destined to play at a slightly higher level. And I think that he got the opportunity to do that once things opened up. He had spent the season before Sheffield in Belgium, in Ghent, I think they were lower division. They might have been second division at the time. So he had a familiarity with that league and the people there.
Mm.
And so he got the opportunity to go to Antwerp, if I'm not mistaken. And that was a coach who he had known, a really good coach, a very successful coach, Belgian coach, and yeah, so he went over there, and you know he was treated really really well, and yeah, it was tough, I think, for the Sharks to compete with what he was offered. So I think it was just natural to move on, but we certainly missed him.
Another pivotal time in that Sharks era was the end of Jim Brandon as coach and Chris Finch then becoming the head coach. What do you remember of that period?
Well, probably too much. I remember a lot about it. It was tumultuous time. I think Jim, I think as the talent level increased in our third season and as the league opened up and more Americans were on the teams, I think Jim tried really hard to coach the way he had coached us, which was being a really strong motivator. And I think that we started to get probably guys on the team who weren't as adept at being coached like that. And I think we probably lost some of our competitive edge. And I think that was tough for Jim to handle and to understand how he was going to keep increasing us. Plus, it's really tough. We spoiled our fans in a lot of ways because we were so successful right at the first season, and we won so much, and we still won a lot in the second season too. But they expected trophies, and I think that we lost. If I'm not mistaken, I think we lost that third season. I think we lost the cup final, and I think that was really tough for us. Losing that cup final because the cup was held in Sheffield, the cup final. I think we thought we kind of as long as we put ourselves in a position to get to the final and play in Sheffield, we should be bringing that trophy home. So that was a setback, and I think we the other teams strengthened really really well. The Leopards were good, and we struggled to beat them.
Yeah, I'd say it's unusual because you're runners up. You went out in the semi-finals, the playoffs, semi-finals, the trophy, and finished third in the league. So it's a rare off season for the Sharks.
Yeah, in only our third season, I think if we'd have done that in our third season and hadn't had the success previously,
Mm.
people would have said, "Wow, we're competitive, we're right up there." But as I said, we had high expectations for ourselves as well, and we set our goals high. We wanted to win, much like the Newcastle teams that came later and the Leicester teams that came later than that. We wanted to set ourselves up to be successful and win every trophy every year. That was our expectation. You have to have that as your goal, and you want to start with the end in mind and start with your goals and set those out for the season. But yeah, transitioning from that, and then Chris had a bit of a weird start. He couldn't get licensed at first, so he was having to kind of coach and play. We went to a tournament out. Well, I got married. That was a significant thing that happened in my life. Right before our first preseason tournament in August, I got married that year, '97, and we went over to Hanover. That was my honeymoon. Was going to Hanover to play a Christmas tournament with my teammates. Uh, yeah, start as you mean to go on, right?
Yeah.
And we struggled in that tournament. We brought in Mark Robinson from Manchester. We had a nucleus from the year before, but we weren't playing that well at that time. And Chris couldn't fully concentrate on coaching us because he wasn't licensed yet, so he had to play a little bit, which meant we couldn't bring in another American. And then finally, when he got his license, that's when Terrell Myers showed up, and that changed things significantly. We started playing better. Um, the league was still tough. The Leopards were still really good, and um, Chris, I think it was always going to be a tough transition for him. Keep in mind, we'd been teammates. Our relationships that we built with him were around being teammates. So for him then to take that position of authority over us and tell us what to do and have us believe in him and believe what he was wanting us to do was going to work, that was a big transition, and I think that was hard for all of us to come to terms with. When you being held to account and you mess up on the court and your teammate yells at you, you can take that. And then when the coach yells at you, and you have to take that. And then if a former teammate who's now your coach yells at you, there's all different dynamics there that we're all trying to get used to. So it wasn't easy. And then John Amici showed up. They brought him in. He had been caught by a team in Italy, and they brought him in. And that kind of took a lot of playing time away from me personally. I think that season for me was a real struggle. I got demotivated. I got benched. I wasn't playing as much. So I think my attitude was poor. So that was, and all that was going on at the same time. Chris was trying to coach his first year, and I think we were all just feeling our way through it. It wasn't easy, for sure.
If you don't mind me asking, going back to that point, at that point, were you thinking, I'll fight for my spot, or maybe it's time to look elsewhere? And those thoughts going through your head? Because it's always interesting to ask an athlete how they felt at that time.
Well, yeah, be honest with you, I felt depressed. I wasn't enjoying basketball the same way that I had. The camaraderie of the team wasn't the same. The relationships weren't the same. So, yeah, I probably was thinking those things. Um, I had really good relationship with Chris as a friend, and we played together, and we've been through thick and thin together, building the Sharks, effectively building that team and building, helping to build the organization for the first 3 years. So, I'm a loyal person, and they they stayed loyal as well to me over those years. So I think when it came down to the end of the season, there were a couple of teams that were interested in me, and I was looking at those opportunities. But I think um, having having the relationship I did with Chris, and we thrashed it out, and we thought, we're gonna do things differently next year. We're gonna approach the season differently. We're gonna build the team differently, and we want you to be a part of it. And so I said, well, I believe in that, and I'll stay loyal. You staying loyal to me, I'll stay loyal to you. And I was really glad I did.
Because anyone who's listening to the podcast knows I love mentioning the title game of 1999, and I'm going to ask you about
Mm,
that. But I want to ask you about first, and if you remember before that game in Manchester in '99, you played Chester, didn't you? And you could
mm,
have wrapped up the title then. Because I remember years ago, because Greg Meldrum was a Tiger, telling me, the only reason that '99 game ever happened was because Chester beat Sharks the week before.
sure
Um,
did.
what do you remember of that? Because obviously you're going into the game, you win tonight, it's over. And then what happened?
It's weird, isn't it? Because I don't know if this is something to do with me personally, or if other players have the same affliction, but I remember a lot of bad stuff. I know that I'm talking a lot about good stuff today, but I remember a lot of bad things that happened. I remember games that I made mistakes that cost us the game. I remember losing a game because of me, a turnover that I made. I remember missing free throws to lose games, but we missed, and I'll say we to be very team orientated here. But we missed a bunch of free throws at the end of that game, and we were gonna win that game, and we missed a bunch of free throws, and ended up losing. It was interesting how that week materialized afterwards, though. I remember it very vividly, how we had good camaraderie on that team. Again, it was almost like the first season all over again with the characters that we had, the relationships that we had within the team. Terrell was obviously he was our leading scorer. He was our main guy. Everyone knew that. We accepted that. We had Will Johnson inside. Will and Terrell were really good friends. They played college basketball together in America. And that night, the Monday night after we lost to Chester, we all went out together, which was rare for that season. But we drowned our sorrows, and we just all kind of got that out of our system. Even Chris, he went out with us too. And we showed up to practice on Tuesday morning. We're all very, very hungover, but we just started working, and we started killing each other. Basically, we took it out on each other. First, first we went out and talked it out, and you know had fun. And then the next morning, it was over, and we were just going to kill each other for the rest of the week, until we got to that game and make sure we were ready. And yeah, it
it's
was it
it,
was it was a tough
yeah.
week, because it could, if you lose that next game, it's then like, oh my gosh, you just lost two games in a row when you had the title like in your hands.
But also, when you look back on it, yes, you had that letdown in Chester, but it led to what I still consider the greatest moment in BBL history. You know,
Mm.
you managed to get your redemption. Um, let's talk quickly then about that game. What do you remember of that? Because I've mentioned previous podcasts, I was there. As a neutral, and I absolutely loved it. But what do you remember of that Good Friday in the arena in Manchester?
I remember a lot of the build up to it. There was a tremendous amount of hype around that game. We we had beaten them in a very controversial way, not too long before that, in Sheffield Arena. I shot a three-pointer coming down the end of the game, and my hand was smacked, and there was a foul called, and I went to the line to make some free throws, and we ended up winning that game. And I think they all thought it wasn't a foul, shouldn't have been called. So there was a lot of controversy around that. So they felt hard done to. The build up to the game, we went over to Manchester. the day before. We were, just getting in the zone, really preparing ourselves mentally for that game. I'm going to get emotional talk about this. Yeah, it was. I mean, I don't know if I could talk about it. I'll get too emotional, actually.
Well, I distract you slightly then. You walk out on that floor. I mean, they had some good crowds at Arena, but apart from a little section at the top, I remember at the far end from me, a little section that was closed off. That arena was absolutely
Mm,
packed that day.
yeah, yeah. It was an amazing atmosphere. I don't remember being nervous for that game. I think the thing about how sometimes in our league you play somebody so much, right? We'd played them in the trophy, two legs or something. We played them in the league. We played them so many times, and I think eventually you're not really there's nothing you don't know about the other team. There's nothing they don't know about you. So that game felt it wasn't an overly pretty game. It felt very much like a physical war that it was going to be. It was physical between me and Tony Hawley and Will, Dorsey, all very physical. Mikiba Perry, another physical player. There was just it was absolutely exhausting playing against them. They physically their physical presence. That team was incredible. So you knew what you were going to be up against, and we had to sort of out tactician them, because they were so unbelievably talented. Um, you couldn't let any of their players get going. Like if Dorsey scored one or two baskets in a row, you needed to just lay a foul on him. You can't just same with John White. A couple baskets, those guys that would be it. They'd just go, and there'd be no recovering from it. So we had a lot of different things that we had to do against them. It was very much a mental challenge going up against them. The physical part of it was huge, but tactically, Chris did a really good job in that game. And we got up from. I mean, I watched it several times. You can imagine now,
Yeah.
but we got up by I think it was in 9 or 10 points at one point, and it felt like the game was slipping away from them a little bit. But Tony Hawley took over and he got a bunch of offensive rebounds, stick backs. Will got in a little bit of foul trouble. So, they got back in the game, and that was why it came down. The ball went out of bounds on the baseline. I think they were arguing it should have been off us. The referee gave us the ball back. And then we had an out of bounds play that we always ran, and Chris flipped it. Basically, he flipped the screener around, and so they just looked at the play, and I'm sure they just thought they know what we're going to run, and then we flipped the play, or Chris flipped the play, and Mike Payne went to screen for Terrell, and he came off of the screen, pump fake, little dribble, and then boom.
Miles to win the league, as Dan Ratledge said at the time.
Yeah.
If I could take you back moments before, I don't know if you remember or not. I interviewed Dan many years ago, and he talked about at the end of the game there was one timeout called, and then another timeout was called. Can you remember? Because obviously that was a fair bit of time, and Dan was talking about how it was great for the TV coverage, all the pressure, all the shots around the arena. Can you remember anything that was said in those two timeouts? Because you'd have been on that sideline for quite a bit before the Miners play.
Yeah, I don't remember too much about. I definitely remember the play, and I definitely remember, how Chris reconfigured that play that we always ran. So the whole idea was to a bit of a ruse, right? It was to make them think we were just going to run something that we always ran, and then to switch it up. But when we got back to the timeout, others might remember better than me, but I don't remember switching anything up at all. we stuck with what we were going to do, because under the guise of it, under the appearance of it, it looked exactly the same of what we were planning the first time out there. So we didn't, but yeah, it was amazing. And then everybody went crazy. That was great because we won the cup that year as well, and so that was great. So another really good season. The reason why I got a bit emotional is because we lost Matt Gaudio, who was a big part of our team. But silver lining, we got Pete Scantlebury out of that. So it's not like and he helped us tremendously that season, which was I don't know what would have happened if we hadn't got him. But we started off, I think it was 12-0 or 13-0, and then lost Matt to a torn ACL, which was horrible and horrific for him. Um, and yeah, he was great. He was a great teammate. I been to visit him a few times in Ohio. But yeah, what a great man he is.
Just that interested, did he get a winner's medal?
Good question.
I'd hope
I
so.
don't know the answer to that question. I hope so. I hope so.
And any story about Manchester 99, I'm all over.
Yeah, sure. Well,
Um,
I mean, the thing about the build up to that is, when we were in the hotel, Matt had written a letter which Chris read,
uh-huh.
and it was very emotional.
I can hear it in your voice.
Yeah, because and just thinking about it, yeah, it takes me back.
Uh, uh, you know,
Mm.
you could say you won it for him if you want. And then,
Yeah, well, it was yeah, it was amazing. It was amazing. And then Travis defected and went to Manchester the following season. So that was horrible
I
because
was
he
going to
was
ask you.
he was such an amazing point guard, such a great personality, a linchpin really for that team. And then he goes to Manchester. I think we were all just so dejected when he left. That was really really tough, really tough. But we got Nate, so again, silver lining.
Yeah.
Nate comes in. He played at Derby the year before, um, and Nate obviously gone on to do great things coaching wise. An incredible person, really nice guy. Loved playing with him. Great teammate. He always had this oversized basketball that he practiced with. So it was called the big ball, and
Oh yeah, yeah.
it barely fit in the rim. And he used to bring it every practice. So we'd be there before practice shooting. And no wonder, he could shoot the ball so well because all he did was practice with this big ball all the time. Um, but yeah, that year won the cup again. So beat Manchester for the cup that year. And then lost to them in the trophy. They beat us pretty handily. And then league wise, I can't even remember who won the league that year. You'll have to get your book out again.
Oh,
So
I
that
tell
would have
you what,
been
the
99
old BBL
2000.
handbooks. Was it Manchester
Yeah,
that year? Was it Man?
99 2000. So you know what? I think it might have been conferences. So I think Manchester won the
Oh,
Northern Conference,
yeah.
and
I hated conferences.
yeah.
I
So
was
I think
so
Manchester
glad.
won the Northern Conference, and we were second, and then I think Towers won the Southern Conference, something like that.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah. I forgot.
Mm.
I'd completely forgotten about the conferences.
But that meant
Absolutely.
there was no league winner per se.
Yeah. The problem for me
Yeah.
was it's like as a Tigers fan, we're suddenly playing Brighton Bears and London Towers so many times it got
Yeah, we
boring.
played everybody 4 times.
Well, then you'd meet them in the trophy or the cup or
Mm.
playoffs, and
Yeah.
it's like ugh, you just got
Well,
bored.
refer to my earlier comment when you played a team so many times,
Yeah,
that you knew everything about them, they knew everything about you. Sometimes
yeah,
it just became a bit of a war of attrition. because you knew how to stop them, they knew how to stop you, and it just the games were kind of ugly sometimes.
And we obviously need to bring you around to the end of your first stint with the Sharks.
Sure.
But before we go on, I'll go back to an earlier question. We're talking about obviously, yeah, the playoffs was the championship. The
Mm.
the actual league itself was weird for you at the start. How disappointing was it the fact that you were so successful that you during that spell you just couldn't get your hands on that playoff title?
It was very disappointing. I think we had a bitter taste in our mouths in a lot of those years because we'd done so well. We'd won trophies during the season or even won the league, and then we'd come to the end and we just couldn't do it. Maybe it was like a Wembley jinx or something. Who knows? But we just couldn't play well enough to win anyway in at Wembley. So that was tough. I didn't like that about my Sharks career. Those first 6 seasons, come away empty-handed with no playoffs was really, it wasn't great. It wasn't a good way to end any of those seasons, to be honest.
And how did your time with the Sharks come to an end? Was it 2000?
Yeah, that's right. Um, so being married, I eventually became naturalized, and that
Mm-hmm.
was the season that I became naturalized, and so I was able to play in Europe as a British player. And so I had some offers, still had the same agent, Bob from Brussels. So I had some teams in Belgium interested in me. And I negotiated with one of them and decided to go and play in Brie. So Chris Fight I think he was playing for Newcastle at the time. He was also going. So he'd also gotten married and he'd become naturalized that year. So he was going over it. There was another player from the Towers, Stuart Robbins, and RIP Stu, who was going to play there as well. So we had some really a really good sort of British contingent. Although we're not all purely British, but we all had British passports, going over to play for Brie, and yeah, packed up, sold my house, packed my wife and my two very very small boys, and we went over to Belgium to play, and that was what an experience that was. It was amazing. Totally different, higher level of team, higher level expectancy, accountability, carrying yourself a bit more professionally. Um, but yeah, we did really well. We didn't lose a home game that whole season. We finished, I think it was, I want to say fourth or fifth in the league. We upset Antwerp in the first round of the playoffs. I think we finished fifth, they finished fourth, and then we had to play Ostend. They finished first in the semifinals, and it was best of three. We won at home, and all we had to do was go to Ostend and win one game, and that didn't work out. So that first year in Belgium was really good. Like I said, good team. It felt right. Camaraderie was good. And I had my ups and downs. It wasn't, it was a much stronger league. There were players from high level American players from big conferences, like the ACC and the Big East. Really good players. But yeah, I enjoyed it. Enjoyed it. And then second season I was there. We played in Europe. Tony Dorsey was playing at Cholet. We played Cholet in qualifying round. We beat them over 2 legs. Got into playing in I don't know what you called it, like a ULEB Cup or
Oh, was it the
Euro Cup,
Korach? Does that ring a
Corach
bell?
Cup. Yeah, we got put in with. We played Dijon. We played Caceres in Spain, and we played Lisbon, Sporting Lisbon. So we were in a group with them. We lost every single game.
That's a
Every
quality
single game.
group for that time.
Yeah, we lost every game. Great experience, but oof, not good to be losing all those games. And then consequently playing in Europe, was tough because that was a Wednesday game, and then we had to play on the weekend too, so we were even more tired.
Before we bring Brie to an end, what was it like for you? Because you lived in Austria, you've lived in England. What was it like living in Belgium? How's that experience for you?
I really enjoyed it. I liked Belgium. My family struggled a little bit because I think we played so many games. They were I wasn't around as much, so I think that my wife struggled a little bit with that. So she didn't spend as much time over there in the second season. And I hurt my back quite a few times in the second season. So unfortunately, my time in Brie came to an end just after Christmas in that second season. And I was weighing up my options to see what I should do. And I came back to Sheffield. My wife was already back in Sheffield, moved all our stuff back over, and I had spent the rest of the season playing for Chris. And that was the Jets sweep year. So we struggled to beat, couldn't beat the Jets, the Chester Jets, and so that was that was the end of that season. And then I think, yeah, that it was really tough to figure out sort of what to do. My wife didn't want to go back to Europe again, and Chester called. So Robbie Pierce called and said, "Did I want to play for Chester?" And then I spoke to Chris, and um, I think I think it was just probably better for everybody at that point that I go and try something new somewhere else, and so I went to play for Robbie over at Chester, and that was really fun. I was a sixth man coming off the bench. Piero Cameron, John McCord, Calvin Davis. They had a really good team. They had a lot of the guys back from the year before where they were really successful. And yeah, that year, if memory serves, you'd have to get your book out again, but I'm pretty sure there were all four trophies won by four different teams. So we won the trophy. I know that because I was MVP of the trophy final. That was in Sheffield, and that was really fun. Played against Towers. Then Sheffield won the league, if I'm not mistaken. And then the trophy was won by Brighton, I want to say. And then Scottish Rocks won the playoffs. So I think it was a really strange season that all the four different teams that won the four trophies. You didn't really get that very often. Usually you had a team that was dominating, but yeah, we were all beating up on each other on that year, and I think Chester the year before had raised the level, so Sharks are much better than the year before. Scottish Rocks were good. Brighton was obviously really good. I think Nick Nurse was coaching Brighton then. So yeah, the league overall, I think was much better on that in that season, and there was a lot of parity. Then I decided that I was going to go to law school. So I applied to law school in Manchester. I decided I was going to finish playing basketball. That was it. My year at Chester was done. I was done. And then I ended up chickening out and not going to law school, but I got a job. I was working in Leeds, doing recruitment. It was just something that I had a friend who asked me if I wanted a job there. I said yes. And yeah, so that year I just worked, and that was a real struggle. I think it was a struggle. I think I probably, I didn't weigh up enough how big of an impact it was going to have on me as an individual after all those years to just completely stop playing and start working. And that was really tough. We'd bought a house in Sheffield and we were fixing it up. It wasn't livable in, so we had to fix it up. At several months of spending every weekend there working, and I really missed basketball. I really missed playing. I missed the relationships. It was great having more time with my family, I'm not going to say that it wasn't, but I definitely miss basketball. So the Derbyshire Arrows asked me the following year if I wanted to come back and play, and I said yes. And there was quite a few former Sharks players on that team. We Guy Renton, Adrian, Garnett, Mike Payne, myself. Um, that was so much fun. We just played basketball the way that we had always played it, moving the ball, moving ourselves, screens, playing really good defense, and it was just fun. And we won some trophies, we won the playoffs. Finally, I won the playoffs. I had to go to Division 1 to do it. But
Yeah.
yeah, won the
Yeah.
playoffs and made the last second shot to win the playoffs as well against Reading. So it was a three pass from Ryan Patton, who's one of our really good friends. Still speak to him to this day. He was a amazing guy, great player, lefty shooting guard, who we played really well together that year, and that was fun. And then the Sharks came. Pete Scantlebury was coach in the Sharks, and he came and asked me if I wanted to come back and play some more. So I said yes, and I went back to play again. Um, and then I played that season, and then the season after, I wanted to not practice as much. And Pete's still a very, very good friend of mine, and I hope he won't mind me saying this, but we just couldn't come to an agreement about how much time I could give because I was working full time, and I wanted to practice a little less, and it didn't sit well with him, and I respected that, so I didn't play again for that season. I was working England basketball in that time, and then the season after that, Pete unfortunately was let go by the Sharks, and Atiba Lions came in and as the coach, and he asked me to come back and play and help him coach as an assistant. So I did that, and that's what I did over my sort of last 3 years playing. Where we had some good teams there, but that was when Everton were good, Guildford Heat were good, and we didn't quite overcome any of those teams. So so the last 3 years, but
Yeah.
wrapped up and packaged in a neat little
Yeah.
present for you
But
there.
that Sharks team obviously so different to the when you first joined them.
Yeah, yeah, very different. A lot of different players. I think Atiba was testing himself. He was trying to grow as a coach. I'd seen that before with Chris. It does take a while to figure all that out. And then he was trying to play at first, and that that's always tough. Fab Flournoy famously played and coached Newcastle for a long time. It's a really difficult thing to do. You have to have a very strong team. You have to have a strong assistant coaching staff who can help you make decisions when you're out of breath to make them. But yeah, those are my last 3 seasons, and definitely no complaints. I still get on really well with Yuri and Sarah, all the management. Everything ended, really, really nicely and acrimoniously. They retired my number, which was nice of them to do. So yeah, that was the end, and that was the end of me playing, 2010.
So when you made that decision to retire, you were happy with it this time round? It was like, yeah, I know it's time.
Yeah, this time round, yeah. I think by then, I think Rob Dugdale said something, sarcastic about me finally retiring and actually sticking by it. Um, I could have kept playing. I was still playing at a decent level. I could still shoot the ball. I probably could have kept going, but I think it was nice the way it all ended, and that made it feel better. It made it feel right that it all came to an end there.
If we then finish on your playing career, just looking back, you can go back as far as William Mary or Gratz even, or Brie. A moment that stood out for you that you probably haven't mentioned, something that you look back on very fondly, or
something you might want to forget? Is there something we might have missed, or have we covered it all, do you think?
It's a good question. We've barely scratched the surface. We've been talking for a long time,
Mm.
but I think we barely scratched the surface. There's a lot that happened. There's a lot of things that stand out to me. I think at the end of the day, it's relationships that you think about, the players that you played with. Your life is also, getting married, having children, all this time when you're playing, and these, relationships that your children have with those players. And then I went on afterwards, which I know we'll talk about in a minute, to coach junior basketball. Both my sons played basketball. I coached both my sons. That's no picnic. But that Garnett was coaching in around that time. His son was coaching as well, Tyler. There's a lot of relationships in Sheffield, a lot of basketball relationships that I developed, and I think those are the things that I'm probably most appreciative of.
Well, let's talk about coaching then, because you talked about coaching junior level. You mentioned the fact you're assistant coach at the Sharks for a while. Did that ever come into your mind? Would I like to be a head coach one day, or it just happens?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there were quite a few times probably throughout those years when I was still playing where I discussed with my wife potentially going back to America and me coaching, but I think that our kids were at a point where it was probably a little bit too late, and I think we'd established ourselves here in Sheffield, and so I decided to coach junior basketball and get involved in that. Um, as I said, both my boys were playing. It was great. I coached for 7 years. I ran the junior basketball club for 5 years. My wife and I organized all the coaches, all the team managers, did all the events, and basically administered the club. That was really fun. Our boys got to make a lot of long-term relationships. Basketball builds a lot of positive things in anyone's life who plays. It builds character, it builds resilience, it builds camaraderie, build relationships. You have to respect authority. You have to learn how to give of yourself towards a common goal. So I think there's a lot of good life lessons there, and I wanted my boys to experience that, and they were able to do that. And it was not easy running the club. I'm sure there's hundreds and hundreds of volunteers across the country who do that, and I tell you what, it's a labor of love. But yeah, after my middle son finished when he was 18, then I basically agreed with the Sharks that the junior setup would go back under the senior team, which it wasn't at the time. So we were able to put all that together. That's gone from strength to strength, which is a really nice thing to see, that they've been able to run that really well. And they have a ton of kids playing both male and female basketball in Sheffield. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's frustrating as a former player, coaching kids. Parents in this country don't always have the same level of respect for a former professional basketball player that you think that they probably should have when they're talking to you, and respecting your decisions as a coach. So you have a lot of parents who think their children are better than they are, and that's difficult. The pool of talent is so small here, and the perspective is so skewed on who's good at 13, who's good at 15, who's good at 16. A kid will have 20 points in a game, and the parent thinks they're going to the NBA. So there's a lot of that you have to deal with as well. It's not just coaching the team, but all that was good for me to experience, and have to deal with all that as well. And from a work point of view, I'd gotten the job that I have now. So I work for the YMCA in Nottinghamshire, and I got that job in 2016. So that's the job that the company organization I still work for now. And I got that job in 2016 when I was still coaching. They were very amenable to let me coach and travel back up to Sheffield and do all that. But in 2018, I stopped. And then I did go back to school. I went back and got my master's in business administration. So that was really tough. That took 2.5 years of working and going back to university. Went to Nottingham Trent. Um, Shout out to cohort 3. And yeah, that's the organization I still work for today. And I'm really proud of the work I do for them. It's a great organization, giving back to people, connecting to communities across Nottinghamshire and East Yorkshire. So yeah, that's my kids are all grown up. My oldest son is 27, Jacob. He lives in London, works for a bank down there. My middle son, Matthew's 25. He works in Chesterfield. And my daughter is 20, and she's going to the University of Birmingham, studies chemistry. So Jacob, Matthew, and Mia, shout out to you. My wife, Nicola, still runs the restaurant in Sheffield that she's always run called Uncle Sam's. It's on Exall Road. If you're ever up, Niall, you're more than welcome to come and get a burger. So just tell them you know me, and you'll be all right. That's not for all your listeners, by the way. That's just for you.
Oh, no, you need to do a discount now for listeners, don't you?
Well, I tell you what, we can come up with a code if you wanna do a code. We'll sort that out, and you can put that on your podcast. I'm definitely up for that.
Well, there you go. Then we'll speak about that afterwards. So you obviously, before we get to the future, just looking back, when you arrived in Sheffield back in 1994, which is, I hate to say it, 32 years ago. Is that right? Yes, 32 years ago. Did you ever imagine then you'd still be living in England 3 decades later?
No, I don't think so. I would probably venture to say that even up until, when I was playing back for the Sharks for the third time in 2006 and 7, 7 and 8, 8 and 9, those years, even then, I probably wasn't totally convinced that I was going to be here permanently. So it's weird having an international relationship. I think that there's almost too many options. When you're from the States, being able to go back there, you think about where would you go, what would you do, where would you live, and I probably think by that point, as a family, we decided, this was the best place for us. Growing up, our kids growing up here in Sheffield, they've had a fantastic childhood, and I definitely don't regret staying here in Sheffield. I love the city. I love the outdoor nature of what you can find. You get out in the Peak District. People are super friendly. I think we had a game recently where several of us former players were honored by the Sharks. It was great to see loads of former teammates there, and we all caught up with each other at Christmas. So it's good. It's good. There's definitely no complaints. Would I have thought that I lived here? No, but am I glad that I do? For sure.
So, Todd, it's been absolutely fantastic to get you on today. Before we wrap up, just want to ask. I mean, we spoke on the phone the other week when we were setting up the podcast. Is obviously how much basketball's been such a big part of your life, for so long. Obviously, you've got a great job nowadays. Your kids are all grown up. You're selling Sheffield. Is basketball something you'd still want to be involved in the future, with maybe in a coaching or even a media capacity or getting involved with a team? Is that something you'd still like to do, or is that door sort of shut now?
It's definitely not shut. I think I've had a unique perspective from being here, as you said, for 32 years. I've watched the game go on a bit of a roller coaster ride, to be honest with you. It's difficult to think of the trials and tribulations that basketball's had in this country. And I also worked at England basketball. I had 2 stints there, because I like to go back when for a second and third bite sometimes. But I worked there for 2 years, and then I went back and worked there from 2010 to 2014. That was not a very good ending to my time there, for me and for a lot of other people as well in 2014. And there's been a lot of one word you can't use for basketball in this country is harmonious, right? There's a lot of different people. There's the Olympics created a lot of opportunities, but it also created a lot of threats. And the opportunity was there. There were decisions that were made to come together as home nations and have an Olympic team. It was a great decision. Unfortunately, they didn't win any games, so that success is based on medals. And I think over the years, just watching the game go up and down and up and down, I really hope I want the best for the game. I love it. I love the game. I really want it to be successful in this country, but I'm still not convinced. There's still so much that happens, it seems, every couple of years. It feels like that the game is just swimming against the tide for some reason, and I don't know why. Would I get back involved? For sure. And what capacity that would be in, I don't know. But I always loved going to the Sharks games still. I love watching them play. And if they asked me to do anything, I'd definitely be up for doing it.
I just have to little correction here. Olympics, no wins. There was the one win, which I like to call the Kieran Achara game.
Oh, was there one win? Oh, I'm
Yes,
sorry. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. But
Well, you'll have to take that bit out.
Oh no, we'll leave it in. Don't worry. But it's the case if someone said, don't mind me asking, someone said to you then, Todd, would love to get you involved with this, that, or the other. You'd be say, let's have that conversation. Would that be fair?
Yeah, I think so. It's it depends on what it is, and it depends on the circumstances and where it is. I work a lot, so I think that's my main focus. And my kids are spread out a little bit now, so I need to go and see them. So it would depend on what it is. Your commitment to basketball, as you know, is weekends, and so it would have to be right. But as far as one-off things go and ad hoc things, I'll definitely be up for it.
Right. Well, I think we shall leave it there, Todd. Listen, it's been absolutely fantastic to get you on today. It's been a great chat looking back over your career. As I've said in previous episodes, you played in one of my favourite eras of British basketball, and it's been great to get some of your stories from that period, quite a few which I didn't know myself. So just want to say thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it. You didn't ask me what the worst venue I played in, which is what you asked Jason, but I'll tell you, it was Ellesmere Port High School on the carpet. So it was the only carpeted basketball court I've ever played on in my life. But that was the worst court I ever played on, and there were a lot of bad ones.
I don't have to ask the same question to everybody, but I will ask you one question then. You had that season at Chester.
Yeah.
And I asked Jason, and I will ask you, what was it like as someone who's probably booed when they played there to someone who was cheered when they played there? Because, that sports centre in Chester was unique.
Yeah, it was the Northgate. Yeah, it was great. I mean, the Chester fans are so diehard. So are the Sheffield ones. I mean, they're actually very similar in a lot of ways. Good traveling contingent, really raucous. Totally fans that were on your side, and I still hear them chanting TC, TC. I can still hear them chanting that, and in Chester they did it too. So. I enjoyed playing both those places. Played a lot more years in Sheffield, obviously, but my 1 year in Chester was really good. Yeah, the fans there are great.
And on that note, we really will wrap it up. Thank you so much today, Todd. I really appreciate all your time.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, please make sure to share the podcast on your socials and tell everyone about it. I'm off to check the menu for Uncle Sam's in Sheffield. Until the next time, my name's Niall Gray. Thanks for listening. You've been listening to the Eurostep Brit podcast, a Hoops and Hockey production.